It is exactly 9:49 a.m. News and views on Salam Media, and we are into the 16 days of no violence against women and children, the 16 days of activism, and that's the reason why we are talking with Kavya Swaminathan, who is an intervention supervisor at the Tears Foundation. It's a beautiful story of how she is now with this foundation. She's going to tell us about that. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we create the awareness and what more can be done to stop violence against women and children. Kavya, very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you here. I understand you started the Tears Foundation. How did this come
No,
about? No.
no. I did not start the Tears Foundation. So Tears Foundation was started by our founder, Mara Glennie, who is a survivor of intimate partner violence. So she had a very abusive ex-partner. And when she finally gained the courage to go report him, she walked into a police station on a Friday afternoon. And the policemen at the station actually asked her to come back on Monday. They said there was a shift change, they wouldn't be able to help her.
Oh
And
my
it,
word.
yeah, and it's a really harrowing story because the main thing that she said that she needed at that point, she's like, I just needed some information. Fine, you couldn't open a case for me, but you couldn't provide me with comfort, information, awareness, nothing. So that is when Tears Foundation was actually like conceptualized. She wanted a safe space where survivors could go, where they could have like that loving warmth of like a hug around their shoulders, where they would have all the information they need. Because a lot of the times the biggest gap that we see is when something traumatic is happening, people don't know where to go. They don't understand what services are out there for them. They don't know what they have the right to, what they have access to. So we try to bridge that gap.
You know, what is my fear about all of this? Every year without fail, we create the awareness of, abuse against women and children. The 16 days is just not nearly enough. I think much more needs to be done because I kind of wonder, should our government not legislate for more severe sentences against men who abuse women? Because what happens is sometimes they make up with their partners again. They cajole them to coming back. They make all sorts of promises, but the abuse just continues. And even if and when that relationship ends, the perpetrators go on and abuse other people. So
Mm.
the perpetrators need to be targeted. They need to be put into special programs for them to understand where and why they broken the way they are, and they need, I guess, intense counseling to stop the abuse, to stop the abuse on vulnerable people.
No, definitely. So we always say that gender-based violence, you need to look at it more holistically in order to tackle it effectively. You can't just say we need to focus on police reform, or we need to focus on judicial reform, or we need to focus on X or Y or Z. You need to actually be looking at all of those moving parts at the same time. So when you're talking about stricter sentencing, that's a big part of it, but the bigger problem, but another part of that is that people don't actually report. So gender-based violence and sexual abuse is one of the is very underreported. So whenever you see a statistic related to it, take it with a grain of salt, times it by 10, 20, 30, and then you might be looking at a more accurate picture. So when it comes to like sentencing and conviction, that's already like the end stage, right? So the idea is that rape is an underreported crime. In the few cases that do get reported and actually investigated, a lot of the next stage would be is going to court. A lot of cases are dismissed at the level of going to court because prosecutors feel that there's not enough evidence, or there's like no proper way to proceed, so then that gets limited. And then finally, if you do get convicted and you have sentencing, people are fine with getting sentenced because they feel like it's just a slap on the wrist. Most people get let out within a few years, either due to overcrowding, good behavior, a whole bunch of things. So when you talk about proper punishments, that's a big part of that. People who have been accused of sexual assault or even domestic violence still get let out on bail. So that is a big thing. And then they get let out on bail and they reoffend, whether it's the same person or someone else. And so, like I said, lots of moving parts, and we need to have a far more holistic approach when we deal with it.
What do you believe that the 16 days of activism against no violence, what sort of messages should we be giving out in any event, even though we do know that
Mm.
it's 16 days is just not enough. But what ought to be happening during this period?
I think the main thing is education and awareness. So many people are unaware of their own rights or their own situation. We live in a patriarchal society. We have perpetuated patriarchal norms. Women don't know that they're being taken advantage of. Men don't know that their behavior is toxic or is like entrenched in misogyny. They don't know because we don't talk about these things. People see gender based violence as a women's issue and they don't include men into the table. I think the main message we want to like really get out there is that use your voice, speak out, but also educate yourself, learn more, use these 16 days where we're going to be talking about it nonstop to educate yourself and understand your situation and the situation of those around you.
I'm wondering, men are very reluctant to go for therapy and counseling. It's almost as if they believe that men, similarly to their belief in that men don't cry or men shouldn't cry, boys don't cry, that they don't need therapy, they don't need counseling, they've got this. How do we conscientize them that it's going to show them where and why they broken, because only broken people can abuse other people.
Mm,
If you're not broken, uh, if you're okay, you'd never perpetrate violence on anyone else because you
mm,
know it's wrong. And that they also need to know what's the meaning of violence. A lot of men seem to think that violence is physical, but violence can be other forms of violence: verbal, emotional, withholding finances from a partner, and so forth.
it's exactly what you said. Hurt people. And we are
Ah,
just, and with societal norms, patriarchy, and a whole bunch of cultural factors, a lot of stuff goes into this melting pot, and we just perpetuate a cycle of abuse. You can't blame someone who grew up in an abusive household if that's what their picture of normal looks like, right? So then they will grow up to be an adult who says, well, mom and dad this did this, so this is how I'm supposed to act as an adult now. When it comes to men being reluctant for therapy, I think it all goes back to education and talking about the issue. There's still so much stigma attached to gender based violence, to the ideas of psychologists and therapy and all of this stuff. And the only way that we overcome that is actually talking about it, is having open dialogue. So 16 days is great because it's these 16 days of open platforming. But the truth is, like you said, 16 days isn't enough. We need to have a whole year of this. It needs to be continual. People need to make the conscious choice to put in the effort and to do good. And it is hard. I mean, it does take work. We always say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's exactly the
absolutely.
saying. So,
My
yeah.
my final question to you, because I do know that you've got a 10 o'clock meeting to attend. How do we start these conversations with reluctant men, that it's okay to go for counseling, that there is
Mm.
something wrong? We know counseling is painful because, they kind of dig into all the hurtful stuff. We know that it's very difficult. It's a lot of hard work, but only through counseling can you come to terms of who you are, where you're at, and how you can heal. How do we have those conversations?
So there's two ways of tackling that. So the first is talk to your kids, talk to the youth, because they're, you know what, they're the ones who are going to make future change, right? So talk to them young, let them know, let them understand that there's nothing shameful, there's nothing wrong with it. And when you come to our older generations, I think a big framing point of this is that you can give them all the information, but they have to be able to make that step. And that's as much as you can do. I mean, it's also this understanding that you cannot force someone to do something, no
Absolutely.
matter who they are. So yeah, it is tough. It is very tough, and but it is also tiring for you as someone on the outside who's trying to encourage someone to constantly stand on that soapbox and yell. So we know that you can't do that indefinitely. So I think after a point, you have to lay out all your cards on the table. Be like, as someone who loves you, this is what I think you need, but you need to be able to make that decision for yourself. Otherwise, it's never going to come from a genuine place.
Okay, and that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed for your insights on this difficult situation: 16 days of no violence against women and children. God bless, go
Thank you.
well, and Hope to have more conversations with you in the
Yes.
future.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and that's where we leave it. It is 9:59 a.m. We're going to be ending on a sad note. Inna Allahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. We announce the janaza of Farida Bassa, wife of Hafiz Farooq Bassa, ex Duffs Road, Mangrove. Pickup time is 2:30 p.m. from 21 Park Drive, Westville. The janaza salah is at 3 p.m. at Masjid Noor, Mallinson Road. Burial Kenilworth Road. And this is very sadly one of our regular listeners' mother. Our duas is with the family during this very, very difficult time. Allah grant the marhumin the higher stages in Jannah, inshallah. It's exactly 10 o'clock. Thank you for being with me. Assalamu alaikum from me, Julie Ali. Till tomorrow morning, inshallah.